I'd like to call the July 15, 20 meeting of the Board of Education of Rogue Community College to order at 5 p.m. And based on my observations, we have a full board present. Welcome, Pat, on Zoom. So we certainly have a quorum. Why don't we introduce our guests today at the meeting? We'll start with Lisa.
Lisa Stanton, Vice President of Operations and Finance.
Hi, Dave Kohler, Vice President of Student Learning and Success.
Juliet Long, Vice President of trying on different job titles. It's gonna, with maybe strategic mischief today, so.
Strategic work.
Strategic.
Yes.
Steve Phelps, Dean of Instruction.
Navarro Chandler, Dean of General Education and Transfer.
Lisa Parks, Dean of Business and Workforce Development.
Nicole Secreta, Dean of Enrollment Management.
Richard Plott, Chief Information Officer.
I'm Kevin Partier, and User Support Specialist too. I'm the IT support for today.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Glad to have you. So I see public comment is the next item on the agenda. Do we have any public comment? Well, I'm seeing that we have no public comment. So we will now proceed to the first of 3 action items, which is the annual board organization for fiscal 2025 and 2026. And I see that in our packets, we do have an exhibit 4A that describes the election of officers, the custodian of financial funds, the signatories, and the depositories for college. But at this time, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded that we adopt the annual board reorganization as described on exhibit 4A. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? So it's a unanimous decision. And congratulations, Vanessa.
Thank you.
And yourself for- Chair.
We also have on the meeting schedule has been given to us part of 4A also, so hopefully everybody has that and has accepted those meeting invitations as they come from Rochelle. Yes, okay. The next order of business action item is to talk about our board committees and the liaison interest survey results. As you know, this year we did something a little bit different. We filled out a interest survey result and Phil was kind enough to kind of tally that all together to look at our committees for the year. We have a couple of them that we need to kind of have some discussion about narrowing down so that we can try not to have a quorum. These committee meetings especially. Yeah. So you can kind of, hopefully you've had a chance to kind of look it over a little bit and see. Just open it up for discussion a little bit around those 3 specific committees to start with. Go for it.
Vanessa, I'm down at the Performance Review Committee. I've done that for a number of years. I'm certainly willing to step down. It looks like we have lots of applications, so you can take me off of that one.
Okay. One of the things that we kind of talked about a little bit in the executive committee is maybe creating that President's Performance Review Committee with some standing members so that it changes every year, but there's always a couple of people that have institutional knowledge of it. So one way would be to say, okay, do we want to have maybe like our past president or past chair, current chair, and vice chair on it each year so that it always has 2 people that have kind of been a part of it before. So that's one idea and suggestion. But I know, Maria, that's also your first choice on the committee, and I don't want to not have you on it either. So just part of the discussion that we can kind of talk about.
I am open to whatever that wants to do. If you want to take advantage of this opportunity to add some structure to it, that's perfect. Okay with whatever. But
Anybody else's ideas?
I would just add that I felt as a new member of the committee, it was useful to have the previous members who had done this work before being members of the committee. So I think that idea is really a strong idea of consideration. So I appreciated your knowledge, Maria, and of course, Roger's knowledge, having done that more than one time.
I totally agree with that. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, I served with Roger and Maria, and I can tell you those two guys, both Roger and Maria were great at it. I was less so. So, but I do like the idea of having some historical memory because we were truly reinventing the wheel. If you remember Roger and Maria.
I do.
Yeah, it wasn't as much fun as you'd think it would be. So.
Would it make, would it make more sense then to have like the previous two chairs and the current chair on it? And then for that, couple of historical?
Well, at least one, Vanessa, one or two would probably be adequate because then you get the feel for it of the previous victims. I mean, volunteers in that. But yeah, at least two. I'm not sure if you need more than that, but somebody some institutional background too that has done this kind of work before. So.
And we've sort of settled into a routine structure for the president's reviews. So when we first started, we were creating something entirely new. So if I'm comfortable, if we're going to continue with that structure for
There may be a better way. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. We shouldn't be locked into what we
shouldn't be
came up
locked in.
with.
Yeah.
So then that makes a lot of sense for those of us who've been part of it to step away and allow some other leadership.
And then it was your third choice.
I'm hearing it should be the past chairs. I mean, that's a great idea.
So what you're saying is having the
I love the two past and
past
current.
and the current.
That's a great.
I don't think that's a bad thing either. You get some
Yeah.
fresh eyes, but you also have the institutional knowledge.
If one of them isn't available, like maybe they cycled off in an election, then you can go to the vice chair.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
That makes
Still
sense.
safe.
Okay, so if we
Alright.
do, if on the president's performance review, we would do then Maria, Vanessa and Gary. That sound right? Okay. So then, Maria, Roger, since you're sort of took yourself off, would you be interested in being on the board self-evaluation committee as your second choice? I would not be on that one if I didn't have to be. Could be you, Pat, and
Yeah.
Jonathan, that sound okay? Or Maria, does that one that you would like to be in since as your second choice?
I'm okay passing.
You're okay passing? Pat,
I'm good. I'm good with that. If that's a good spot for me,
okay?
I'll always serve with Roger.
Oh dear.
Jonathan, that was your.
Do I get a
first
choice?
So Indra, for outreach committee, that was your first choice. Are you good staying on that one?
Yes.
Okay. And then Maria, how about that one for you?
I started on that committee and I was terrible at it. So you probably don't want me back on the outreach committee.
That's okay too.
And that would be really nice to have somebody, some Jackson County roots playing in that ballpark. So maybe Jonathan would like to do that.
Who's the second choice? We're talking about.
We're talking board outreach
Board
committee.
outreach, it's John.
Or Gary.
Gary, you're not on there at
It
all.
wasn't a
but-
committee I selected, Pat, although thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah.
I have very
Look how we're
different opinions of what the board ought to be doing there and might not be a collaborator, as it were. So I chose to not go there.
Okay.
Looks like from first and second choices, it would be Indra, Jonathan, and Pat, who are really the same three that we had this year. If three of you are still
Willing to do it again? Okay.
Well, if that's the case, don't, I think I would be fine with doing that, but I will be calling on more of the Jackson County folks for contacts. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you may have to be squealing on your friends for getting us in there with them, so.
Well, you got Jonathan, who's on several things, so he'll be a great resource for Jackson County too.
Just an amazing guy, just.
He is.
I'd like to meet him.
For the board, the foundation liaison, one of the things we talked about is having more than one. And so that more than one person could go to the meetings if somebody couldn't, and we could always have that presence on there. We just wouldn't want you all showing up at once if there are 4 of you doing it.
Right. And does that work for the foundation?
I think I had talked to Cass about it, but she's on vacation. I can talk to her about it again.
Okay.
So we've gone from one member
Okay.
to potentially.
Do we want to wait on this one and then we'll wait on the foundation.
Wasn't great on making meetings, like I want to do it, but so I don't mind taking myself out if the other 3 really want to do it.
Okay.
Vanessa, once again, I think this might be helpful if we have representation from both counties.
Yeah,
If you have to
yes, for sure.
So how about Maria and Pat? Would that be something you guys would be okay with? Okay, Jonathan, are you okay not doing that since we're putting you on other ones?
I'm good with that.
And we can still talk to Cass a little bit and make sure she's okay with that. All right.
Yep.
We have the bond committee if it's reinstated. I think we're okay with those 2, Roger, you and me.
Yep, you bet.
Legislative committee if it's ever reinstated. I'm okay not being on that one. I'm on a couple of other ones, but
I would be interested in that.
okay. I'll take myself off and that leaves those you 3.
Okay.
Jonathan and Pat, you guys are still okay to do the
Yeah.
OCCA, OSBA?
Yeah, yep.
And the strong-armed one that we did for you already, Jonathan, for the other. All right. My wondering, Rochelle, on the executive committee assignments, because will Jonathan be on them all already?
Yes, so that one, I've already sent out some invites. I have to find, then who wants to volunteer for November or December.
For one or the other,
Yeah.
I can do November.
okay?
I could probably do December if you're looking for another name.
We are. Thank you, Roger. Okay.
Good.
I think that concludes the committees. Is everybody okay with that? Do you need me to review who's on what? Or are you good?
We're good.
And you can send it out to us once it's final. All right, next on the agenda is the contract with Roof Toppers for roof replacement services. You have somebody introducing this to us before we take action?
I'm happy to introduce it. So we're bringing forward a resolution for replacement of a number of roofs, Table Rock, Riverside as well. There are links in there. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to go and look at which parts of the roofs that we are making changes to or replacing. This is something new. We haven't done it this way before, where we've packaged all of the work that we would like to get done in one resolution. And this has helped with some cost savings overall. We did this as well with the HVAC units that we brought forward. And so we would like to move forward and spend the money and of $1.2 million to fix the roofs.
Any questions for Lisa before we entertain a motion?
Have we used them in any other capacity before or in this capacity?
I do not have an answer to that question about this.
They were remarkably close to the pressure point. So the numbers are probably strong.
They are very strong. Greg did mention that in an email to me that they were very strong and he's comfortable in the pricing there.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, those in favor, say aye, raise your hand, do whatever. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, we are on to 5, the president's report.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick things I want to touch base with you on. I give you a little bit of kind of a sneak peek on performance. As you're aware, the last couple of years, our top college priority has been stabilizing enrollment. Kind of coming into this year, what we said is we wanted to keep the 5 college priorities, so we wanted to bring balance to them. So stabilizing enrollment isn't going to be intentionally try to grow enrollment as fast as we can to get into a more stabilized and sustained environment. So there's a couple reasons for that. The capacity we're getting impact with. A primary thing is the amount of support that we rely on from the state funding formula, and the fact that we have hit and significantly surpassed the growth management cap means we're hitting enrollment numbers, and unless something's done with the cap, and it's revisited every biennium, but unless something's done with it, we will have a high number of reimbursable FTE that we're not reimbursed for. So what that means is we do have to truly be a little more strategic about the ways we're looking at where we do future opportunities. Are they closer to self-supporting, or do we have partners who can offset some of those things, that adding things that require significant subsidy from us will require displacing something else, and that will be a more difficult conversation to have. But I wanted to highlight some of the things that, you know, when we talk about those enrollment numbers, what does it mean? And so last year, and I really gave myself way too much confidence. Last year, we had 1,450 students. High school students enrolled, 1,450 high school students enrolled at RCC. 3 years ago, we had just over 800. I mean, that is a significant growth with our high school partners. And that's been very intentional. Our enrollment management team, Nicole and her team, developed a mini strategic enrollment plan to really tackle and focus on this, because 1, it helps our enrollment now, but 2, it helps another initiative we've been working on, which is increasing college going rates for students out of high school. So if they've got credit in hand, there's a greater likelihood that they may matriculate into college. So it's been very fruitful and mindful on our part. We talked a lot about those efforts. I wanted to discuss that. Another key focus that we put into place, and in year 1, kind of what we did is we said, we want to improve course completion rates and term to term retention. And that was more because we need to do something immediate that we can feel. We didn't want to do something that has a lagging indicator, like, let's do this, and 3.5 years from now, we could see if we made a difference. We wanted to, like, what are the things that we could do now that have an immediate impact? But in all that time, we really wanted to look at things like fall to fall retention and ultimately completions, like how our students completing their educational goals that they set out to do. So the completion stuff's still lagging a little bit as we're doing some of these things, as far as like, is a really good time to assess it now based on the efforts. But the fall to fall retention is a really cool number to watch over time, because it's a number that before the pandemic was hovering around the low 40%, 40, 42, dipped down below 40 during the retention. During the pandemic. But the last 2 years, it's gone from 38% to 43% to 48%. So a 10% increase in fall to fall retention is phenomenal. I mean, it really is phenomenal when you're talking about the students we serve, the competition we have with workforce and other industries. And so those are the numbers that lead to things like when we see the opportunity college, the outcomes that we get, as it ties in here a little bit. So when we look at these numbers, there's really stories behind them. And then the students come and say, this is the impact that the school had on me. This instructor's belief in me in this way made me kind of persevere and keep going. So I share some of this, and to say we're working to create more balance, and what that kind of looks like is for this summer, we said, okay, we're gonna have to pace. This summer, overall FTE, we're up 4.6%. And we have almost 2,000 students. We have 1,980 students, as of end of day yesterday, credit and non-credit. But when we said we need to be able to focus on those things where maybe they can be more self-supportive in that, it's oftentimes right now focusing on the credit courses that pay general tuition. And when you look at that, we're up over 20% this summer. And this, our team never ceases to amaze me. When we set a priority or we modify or we do something, they don't do it. They do it well. And so what that does for me then is I'm like, well, I wonder what goal I can set next. Like, how can we challenge them different here? Like, where's the obstacle that we're not going to clear? But that gives me a lot of optimism, and I share all that to say that we have some, this is the season of going into retreat. So we're going to have our executive team retreat, our senior leadership team retreat, and we'll have a board retreat. So we kind of figure out some direction and messaging for the year. And I had to put a little side note in here. One of my favorite colleges said, we don't do retreats because we never look backwards. We do advancements because we're always moving forward. And I always think of that. I'm like, advancements more than retreats. but I always thought, we don't move backwards, we move forward, so we do advancements. But anyhow, I digress. So it's the retreat season, and you'll see from us a little more clear roadmaps in that. But part of what you'll hear from me is a little more of a theme around some themes. And so like one theme will be telling our story more effectively, because we've got a great story to tell. And that's where we're working on the collateral pieces and the outreach pieces. Our marketing team's working on redesigning our website over the year, so that will be made available. So our telling our story work over the year will be something we will update you on as we go through, and you'll be involved in it, especially during your retreat. Another theme is experience. And when we talk about that, we talk about the student experience, right? Where as we've seen these increased enrollments, we have different programs in that. We want to determine assess how students are doing, but we've also implemented Ginzabar and other strategies, and we really want to focus on those numbers that are around student retention and ultimately completion, and say, how is the experience going, so we can redesign this. So we've implemented a student experience team, that student success team, I think is what we call it, but they're looking at that student experience to really improve that. So you'll hear more information on that during the year. The other side of the experience is our employee experience. So we've done now 2 years of the employee engagement survey. We've got some information that we'll share briefly with you during the retreat, but some firm data. We've seen some movement in areas that have given us optimism. We've seen some areas where we're like, okay, there's definitely some consistent feedback there that provides some opportunity. So we think we've got a roadmap for the ways we can engage and work with our employees for employee experience. So the way I've kind of talked about a little bit internally with our teams is the next year is going to kind of feel a little buddy as we define some of those things. And then probably the year after will be when kind of the fruits of that labor will culminate. We're like, wow, look at this fuller experience that we have for students, for employees. Look at the way we're telling our story a whole lot better as we're entering a new strategic plan and things like that. So there's a timeline for a lot of this work, but those are themes that inspire those work. And I'll say that that's all still tied to the 5 college priorities that we set around stabilizing enrollment, student success, employee connectedness, community partnerships, and systems thinking. So those will all be at play, but those themes, as we look at those things, will be important connectedness. And then the last thing I wanted to do is update you on some legislative issues. So our state legislative session ended, and I don't think that there's anything significant to report beyond what our last legislative report was. The CCSF for the biennium came in budgeted at the current service level. There is talk going around Salem though. I can't remember how many bienniums ago it was. Lisa would know. Where they ended up cutting funding during the middle of the biennium because revenues did not, they weren't meeting projections. And there's talk about some indicators being present that could lead to that. And some of those indicators could be loss of jobs in Oregon. We've seen recent Intel's recent job cuts. Locally, we've seen, Dutch Bros pick up and move a lot of key jobs. The other indicators can be Oregon is a state that is heavily dependent on federal support in order to develop its state budget. And so if some of those federal dollars don't come or look different, that could impact it. So we have to be mindful of that. But what I will tell you is it's easier to be mindful of that when we have a 20% increase in credit enrollment in summer. And if fall were to look similar, that we have that tuition revenue in hand, we can rely on that tax revenue from our local district, then what that state revenue provides is it's critical. There's no way we can do without it. But if we overperform in the one area that we have some form of ability to influence, it's going to offset some of the challenges elsewhere. So that's kind of a little bit the state side. The federal side, if you have been keeping track at all, the one big beautiful bill passed and was signed by the president July 4th. And the way that we're seeing right now that impacts higher education is, I'll say on the optimistic side, there's a lot of discussion around short-term Pell, which has been a topic for, over a decade. And there are ways in which the types of training and programming we provide, we're really good candidates for those if we look at our programs. And I'm optimistic about our ability to look at things and be flexible more so than I am some of our peer institutions. I've watched our team be very responsive to the needs of our community. So if this is another tool, is sometimes we literally not design programs in a certain way because of students' dependency on aid to get through the program. Well, if that barrier is removed, then that helps. Now, the flip to that is the last time this topic was discussed, there was a lot of conversation about for-profit and proprietary schools entering the space and the potential for bad actors. Sometimes you see some of them come in and really prey, particularly on students who are reliant on the GI Bill, because they walk around with a lot of eligible money. And so I've watched a lot of schools prey on them, give them some kind of credential that has no industry value, and they've used their GI benefit. And then they come to the college and say, okay, now I want to get your degree. What do I have to show for it? And our advisors tell them basically nothing. And that's a hard conversation to have because they've leveraged a lot of their benefits to get to that point. So I'm worried about that. We'll kind of sort through it. But another impact of that bill when we talk about financial aid is it's on the news today that the Department of Ed, is looking to essentially dissolve. They can't literally dissolve the department, but looking to dissolve basically what it does. And that included the cut of 1,400 jobs. And we are already seeing the impact of when we have questions with federal financial aid and our office reaches out, nobody's answering the phone on the other end. And that makes it difficult when we're trying to serve students. Like they don't fully understand when they come see our representative, we're a conduit to that federal money and we need those answers before they can get it. They see the person that wrote didn't help me.
Yeah.
And so we are working as best we can on those issues. We've got a great team that's staying fully informed, but sometimes we're the messenger of very difficult decisions or discussions. The thing I will say that most recently we're watching to see how it's going to directly impact us is we received notice that money that typically goes through the HEC in the state for Title II funding for adult education was, I think they called it delayed, or I can't remember the word they used, but it's not moving forward. And there is no promise that there will be funding provided after July 31st. And I will tell you we budgeted over $400,000 in that account for state reimbursements. And I think last year, what we say revenue is a little over 500,000. So it's not an insignificant number. It's also a department that's been our fastest growing. I think last year, double check, but last year overall FTE I think was third, which was significant way we support the community. But the way I talked about high schools is also true for this population. This is a pipeline to get people as they're getting their GED, as they're strengthening their English language skills, to then come in and say, okay, now I can take credit classes. Now that was those were my barriers to taking credit classes and getting a certificate to get employment. So absent that ability to help me get over that barrier, we're definitely impacting our prospective credit student pipeline significantly. So those are things that are on the horizon. We will do our best to update you as they change. The state of Oregon filed a lawsuit on the Title II funds, basically from the position where the legislation was passed to fund those things. And now the administration saying we're not going to fund it. So that you bring the other branch we haven't talked about, the judiciary, into it. So they'll come in and they'll weigh in, and we'll go from there. But there is a very high likelihood that we will have similar conversations like this over the next couple of years, where we look at programs where, in order to operate them, we've been relying on federal funds. I will tell you, we have over the last couple of years been working really hard to position ourselves as candidates for some really attractive federal grant dollars. We may or may not be as attractive of a candidate, or those dollars may not be there. But a lot of it that we've been trying to align around, like manufacturing technology, some of the things we've done in healthcare, we've been very intentional about how might we be good candidates. The way we're realigning our grants with our best position, we've been very intentional about it. And there's a likelihood that the intent and your local outcomes are neat, but there's nothing at the other side as a reward for that could be present. What I will say as a optimism, hope, is despite all these challenges, we will do any and everything we can to help our students succeed on our community. But the any and everything could be lessened based on some of these things that are going on. And I really appreciate this board and our schools' ability at not bringing a lot of political conversations into our discussions. But those are examples of how political conversations are impacting our ability to provide support services and opportunities to our students and to our community. And I think with that, I will wrap it up.
Any questions for?
Yeah. So on the Title II, it's adult education. Are those specific courses? You mentioned GED, ELL. Are there other courses? And does it include certain adults that are just in general courses as well?
So as I understand it, and you can quote me on, my understanding is very limited. Like for Title II, I think that there are 5 different components, and one of them is the one that's been impacted with the 716, and that's around the ELL GED currently. And so we don't know the widespread impact of that. I will say that that has been the fast growing part of our college, and in that program, we've encouraging the department, how do we get GED to grow as fast as the ELL has? But what we've seen is people who are like, as I'm strengthening my English language skills, the number one question and reason they ask them is, well, why are you learning English? And so I can be better at my job. Okay. Did you know that if you get better at this job and you learn English, that's a huge barrier to getting a better job, filling this other hard to fill position, to getting this education, like that's not your ceiling now. Like that was your, and so it's helping, as we think about where our future workforce comes from, that was something that we've seen ourselves be able to do is make people stronger candidates to fill those jobs that have been hard to fill in our region by overcoming that. So I will tell you, a lot of community partners rely on us for that. We'll have to see what that looks like. You said you have others?
Yes, I'm just curious. So on the high school, the number of high school students increased significantly.
Yeah.
Is that, do we have specifics? Is that high schoolers taking college classes as a class in the high school? Is it homeschoolers more enrolling in college, finishing early? What?
I'm gonna give a generic answer and then I will let Juliet and Nicole paper, rock, scissors to give an even stronger one. So when I looked at the data last in that way, so we look at it like we have dual credit in two ways. We have the ones who it's their teacher during their day. And then it's basically our teacher during our day. And so their teacher during their day is truly just dual credit for that class that they're learning in high school. The way that it's arranged in the state, there's no tuition paid for that class. But as long as the course objectives are met and their earned grade counts for that college credit. The early college model, and I'm stumbling over our names for our teacher our day is it early college? Is that what?
College, yes.
College is, that is where they do pay for tuition. And there's a couple ways that's done. Sometimes that's done like a contract, like we might go to a high school and teach a CNA cohort. And so we're teaching it there to their students and doing that. Some of the schools may send some of their students to our school during the day. So Three Rivers does that on Fridays and they're taking. So Grants Pass does it. They're really excited about the e-building, send students to the e-building for healthcare classes. So that's that hybrid. And so what happened was we had strong dual credit classes years ago where it was kind of the non-tuition and that dipped significantly and it's rebounding. What's interesting is the early college where they pay, that's growing. That's growing, like those are at record numbers. And so the nice thing about that is that's a lot of the CTE courses, the workforce training program. It's also the courses where we're capturing tuition. And what we're really limited by with that, honestly, is their resources, their ability to pay. And so a couple of years ago, we made the decision to reduce the tuition rate to 80%. So it's 80% tuition for early college. And that was basically because the district said, well, we have $100,000. If we have $100,000, we're gonna spend it on how far that goes. So if we discounted it, more students got it. And so we were watching to say, are they really gonna send the same amount of students and spend less? Or are they gonna spend the same amount of money? And they've been not just spending the money, but doing things like selling, giving us land to sell, to build endowments. And so these are the opportunities they're really interested in exploring more with us. What did I miss on that?
I just think the only thing is the numbers you had quoted were specific to the dual credit college now taken by the, and so those were the kind of that doubled number. And then the early college numbers are different, but definitely growing. We're working that IR with the Genzabar system to recapture them. And then we've got the contracted and cohorted things through Lisa's area, both credit and non-credit, that's growing tremendously as well. So doubled in dual credit over the last four years, basically, but the really even more increases the early college growth and the contracted growth through these other areas as well.
In an example of just ways relationships have strengthened and are working can be, I mean, the perfect example is this summer, Department of Ed made available for the school districts some additional funds to improve reading. And basically, like, they had to have shovel-ready projects or something really quick in order to be eligible and do it. A number of districts turned it down and said, we don't have the ability to put something together. I mean, I think literally they got notice on Thursday and it was due on Tuesday. It was that kind of a turnaround. Well, our two largest districts, Medford and Grants Pass, because of their relationship with us, said, we can totally do something with RCC. Like, we've already got an established partner we trust. And so we're working with both of those schools this summer on leveraging their funds to help with that initiative. So that's an example of where it went on our radar 8 months ago. Went on our radar 8 weeks ago. But because we had the relationship, when those funds became available to them, they're like, well, we're going to go to our established effective partner. And I don't think that they would have done that 4 years ago. Our teams have worked really hard to build those relationships and that trust to make that happen.
This has to do with that, but is there any talk of high school kids that are, 10th grade is a big dropout grade, like those that are failing, like getting more involved in the CTE, is that being discussed?
That is a big part of what I'll say districts in general, I'll say Grants Pass in particular is passionate about. Like, how do we connect them with something and looking at that. And so they, you know, have had different initiatives aligned with that. But we're all, when we get together, that's what we're talking about, is like, how do we get this pipeline to work for us? And so the overarching mission of our Southern Oregon Education Leadership Consortium is building the strongest workforce in Oregon. Well, we know dropouts in 10th grade aren't helping us build the strongest workforce. And so how do we get high school completions? Because we're not gonna get more people to come to college if they don't leave high school. So a lot of that, like, how do we engage them in something that's work-based learning, that's CTE, that's those junior, senior years, but even introducing them to them. So like literally conversations today about how might we introduce to them some skills training in sophomore, junior years, so their senior year, they can go work in that community and do. So there's a lot, those are the types of solutions we're talking.
Other questions? Right. New business, our 25-26 conferences and conventions. I will tell you, the September 6th, we'll have the required training provided at that time. Haven't had it yet. Highly encourage you to attend that one.
And it'll be customized. So Karen Smith is putting that on, so
Yeah.
it'll be more specific to the community college setting than you would get at one of the others.
So Rochelle, what do you need from us?
The only one that's pressing right now is the OSBA Summer Board Conference, because that registration deadline is July 18th. So first on your list, if anyone was interested in going to that, just let me know ASAP. Otherwise, you can all just email me with different interests that you'd like to go through throughout the year.
Okay. Any questions about that? Randy or Rochelle? All right, we have our board retreat scheduled for Thursday, August 14th, and that's going to be here.
Yes, but over the Convention Center.
Right.
Where we had it the first 2 years ago.
I think we had 184
184.
in this building, so it'll be across the street in the health.
Oh, in health
professional center.
sciences.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we were interested in was getting some feedback from the board. The way we're planning to design the day is to spend as much of the morning as necessary on board dealing with board business. So I think one of the things you guys committed to last year was to just revisit your agreement during that time. If there are other things aligned with policies or procedures, board meeting, anything that you guys want to talk about, that you can let probably Rochelle, Vanessa, and me know that, so we can kind of work out from there. And then the remaining time in the morning, anticipating that that's not going to take a significant amount of the morning, we kind of want to spend some time with you sharing outcomes. And so you'll hear from ESOM, you'll hear for some reports on our annual reports that we do around employee engagement and student engagement. And hope to spend time in the afternoon, then more about planning, so direction on where. So the morning, spend a board business, a little bit of reflective and evidence, and then the afternoon will be we'll retreat lunch to advancement all in one day. And then at the end of the day, one of the things, so it might be something to think about in the interim, is workshops. So we talked a little bit about looking at board meetings maybe a little bit differently, where we might leverage, and we'll talk about the detail as to why on this, maybe deeper in the retreat, but maybe leveraging some highlight topics in new business with and for the board during the open meeting, and then workshops can continue to be, you know, the longer, deeper dive, or the required things that are to put in front of the board. But one of the things we realize is that there are times where our open meeting gets more, I mean, they're both open, but our regular meeting gets more either media coverage or that. So given that, it's probably a good time to highlight a lot of the great things as we talk about telling our story, that using the board meeting as part of our telling our story strategy is one of those key things to do. So what that concept, but we've got, we'll reintroduce kind of the 5 priorities as part of the the workshops, but I'd love to kind of lead the retreat with a better direction on how we want to best leverage those workshops to help the board have the information you need.
So if there's anything you want to add to that, make sure we let us know soon. We have a month before it's upon us. All right.
So will the KPI work be a part of that
Yeah,
discussion?
that'll be part of ESOM's morning, is an update on institutional effectiveness. And so there'll be kind of an update on that work, and then we'll have dedicated time moving forward on a full mission fulfillment report updates. Like that will be its own dedicated conversation, but part of the retreat.
That'll be a workshop.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any old business? All right, round table. Anybody have anything to say, to share?
Well, I want to just say thank you, Pat, for opening your home after graduation in, seems like it was longer than a month ago, but it was just a few weeks ago. Appreciated that your beautiful home and the setting. So thank you for that opportunity.
And thank you, Pat, for opening your home for Tim Cook, the running. So that was really a fun get together, and he's raising money and he's very competitive. I learned. And how are we doing? Pat?
We are still the top school not outperforming Clackamas.
Oh, really?
So 11,000 and growing.
Wow.
And where's?
I
Tim
should
now?
tell you that I've pinned a letter to my good friend Jess Howard from Chemeketa Community College, the president there, to throw down. We want them to earn as much money per student FTE as we have.
No.
That would be a lot of money. I've even offered, if they can do that, I will come up and sing to their board, "You are the tops."
I don't know if that's gonna help them right now.
Yeah.
Threaten to do that.
Sounds like a threat to me.
We say you're gonna come sing a less than.
That's what I would go say.
So where's Tim now?
Tim is, yesterday he left Southwestern and Coos Bay and is working his way, backtracking to Umpqua. And then he'll go up to Laneland, Benton, Chemeketa, head back to the coast. He's enjoyed his coastal weather days the last couple of days and is getting back in the grind. And the trick with this is the event days are the challenging thing for him because he doesn't get started running till later in the day. And he's had a lot more running days than event days.
I'm on a meeting right now. Can I
Look
call
at the
you
rest
back
of the
right
trip, there's a lot of event days coming up, so
Okay, thanks.
he'll persevere and do it, but it's he's over, it's a 1,500-mile trip and he crossed 820, 850 mile. I think he was at 820, 19 last night.
That's amazing. Any other?
Only thing I'll add is, while I'm looking forward to partnering with Vanessa, and I know we said this last month, but thank you, Gary, again.
Yes,
For
yes,
what a
yes.
wonderful job
Yeah.
you did this year.
Good job, Gary.
It's not an easy, you made it look easy.
No,
Thank you.
big shoes to fill.
Well, here's greasing the skids for you there, buddy. Thank
We
you.
can fix that mistake.
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you for that.
I think one thing that I appreciate about this board is that we work well together, that we've agreed to our agreements and we haven't had to enforce our agreements because we've just lived them. And so I look forward to continuing that work. And thank you for bringing that to us as we continue on in the new year. So with that, we will adjourn.
Right.
Good job, new record.
With that.
Yeah, right. So I'm gonna turn this over to you now because
Okay.
you and Rochelle.
Give it